Ladies and gentlemen, listen carefully, because this may be the message your soul has been waiting to hear for years. There comes a moment in every human life when the noise outside becomes too loud, when the opinions of others become too heavy, when the pressure to be accepted becomes too exhausting, and when the mask you wear every day starts to feel like a prison. And in that moment, you do not need more entertainment. You do not need more distraction. You do not need more excuses. You need truth. You need a message that reaches deeper than the surface. You need a message that interrupts the cycle. You need a message that wakes the sleeping part of you that has been silent for far too long. And here is that message. You have been living too much of your life from the outside in, when your real transformation begins from the inside out. You have been asking the world to validate you, when the deeper question is whether you have truly met yourself. You have been trying to fix your life without understanding your inner world, when the real battle has always been psychological, emotional, and spiritual. And maybe that is why you feel tired. Maybe that is why you feel uncertain. Maybe that is why you feel stuck, even when things look fine on the outside. Because there is a difference between appearing alive and actually living. There is a difference between being admired and being aligned. There is a difference between surviving and becoming whole. Carl Jung understood something that many people never learn. He understood that a human being is not just a body moving through time, not just a mind collecting facts, not just a social role trying to impress the world. A human being is a mystery. A human being contains hidden strength, hidden fear, hidden longing, hidden wounds, hidden gifts, hidden contradictions, hidden potential. And until you face that inner world honestly, your life remains incomplete. That is the urgent message. Not later, not someday, not when life becomes easier, not when people approve of you, not when your fears disappear. Now. Because what you avoid controls you. What you deny grows stronger in the dark. What you refuse to face begins to shape your decisions. What you keep burying does not die, it waits. And what waits in the unconscious often returns as anxiety, confusion, self-sabotage, numbness, anger, emptiness, or the strange feeling that something is missing, even when you have everything you thought you wanted. Ladies and gentlemen, there are people in this world who are surrounded by success and still feel empty. There are people surrounded by family and still feel alone. There are people with status and still feel insecure. There are people with knowledge and still feel lost. Why? Because outer achievement cannot heal inner disconnection. A decorated life is not the same as a meaningful life. A busy life is not the same as a fulfilled life. A public identity is not the same as a true self. Jung called attention to the persona, the social mask. Every day we learn how to wear it. We smile when we are uneasy. We pretend we are fine when we are breaking. We act confident when we are afraid. We speak in ways that gain approval. We perform roles that keep us safe. And some part of that is necessary. The world requires us to adapt. But if you live only as the mask, you slowly forget your face. That is the danger. A person can spend years becoming what others expect and lose all connection with what is real inside. Then one day, they wake up and feel strange in their own life. They look at their job, their relationships, their habits, their choices, and they ask, "How did I get here? Why do I feel so far from myself?" The answer is simple and painful. They built a life for acceptance, not for authenticity. And authenticity requires courage. Courage to say, "This is who I am." Courage to say, "This is what I feel." Courage to say, "This is what I fear." Courage to say, "This is what I need." Courage to say, "This is what I will no longer tolerate." Courage to stop performing and start becoming. That is not weakness, that is the beginning of strength. Because the strongest people are not the ones who never break. They are the ones who learn from their brokenness. The strongest people are not the ones who never doubt. They are the ones who meet doubt with honesty. The strongest people are not the ones who hide their darkness. They are the ones who understand it, integrate it, and transform it. Jung spoke deeply about the shadow. And the shadow is not just a poetic idea. It is everything in you that has been rejected, suppressed, denied, or pushed away. It includes your anger, yes, but also your power. It includes your insecurity, yes, but also your brilliance. It includes your shame, yes, but also your sensitivity. It includes the parts of yourself that you were told were unacceptable, and therefore you learned to hide them. But hidden parts do not disappear. They influence your behavior from behind the curtain. And often, what we judge in others is the very thing we have not yet accepted in ourselves. That is why relationships can become such powerful mirrors. They do not merely show you who the other person is. They reveal what is alive in you. They expose where you are wounded. They expose where you are projected. They expose where you are demanding from others what you have not yet given to yourself. The person who irritates you may be showing you a disowned part of your own nature. The person you admire may be showing you a gift you have forgotten. The person you fear may be revealing a wound you still carry. This is why growth is not just about improving your image. It is about deepening your awareness. Awareness is the beginning of freedom. When you become aware of your patterns, they no longer rule you in silence. When you become aware of your wounds, they stop pretending to be your identity. When you become aware of your projections, you stop making other people responsible for what is unresolved in you. When you become aware of your avoidance, you stop calling it personality. When you become aware of your self-deception, you begin to heal. And healing is not a glamorous process. It is not always dramatic. It is not always loud. Sometimes healing looks like sitting in silence and admitting, I am not okay. Sometimes healing looks like crying after years of holding it in. Sometimes healing looks like ending a cycle that has poisoned your peace. Sometimes healing looks like telling the truth to yourself before you tell it to anyone else. Sometimes healing looks like choosing responsibility over resentment. Because let me tell you something important. The unconscious does not care about your excuses. It cares about what is true. You can lie to the world and still survive for a while. You can lie to your friends and still keep going for a while. You can lie to your family and still function for a while. But you cannot lie to your soul forever. The soul will ask questions. Why are you living this way? Why do you keep repeating this pain? Why do you keep choosing what destroys you? Why do you keep abandoning yourself for the comfort of others? Why do you keep shrinking your life to fit the fear of people who do not even know your destiny? And these are urgent questions. Because time passes, and many people never truly live. They postpone themselves. They delay their real dreams. They silence their real voice. They decorate their real pain. They become experts at endurance, but strangers to fulfillment. They are praised for being strong, yet secretly they are exhausted from pretending. But today, a different path is open to you. Not the path of pretending, not the path of people-pleasing, not the path of outer success with inner collapse, not the path of distraction, not the path of denial, the path of individuation. That is the Jungian journey toward becoming the person you were always meant to be, not the version that pleases everyone, not the version that imitates everyone else, not the version that is built from fear, but the version that becomes whole. Individuation means bringing the conscious mind and the unconscious into relationship. It means integrating your contradictions instead of running from them. It means owning your strength without being arrogant and owning your vulnerability without being ashamed. It means becoming complete, not perfect. and perfection is a trap. Perfection says, I will become worthy once I remove every flaw. Wholeness says, I am worthy enough to face every flaw honestly. Perfection creates pressure. Wholeness creates growth. Perfection makes you fake. Wholeness makes you free. Perfection keeps you dependent on approval. Wholeness gives you roots. And roots matter, because without roots, every storm becomes a collapse. With roots, storms may shake you, but they do not erase you. So ask yourself, where are your roots? Are they in applause? Are they in money? Are they in comparison? Are they in being seen? Are they in being chosen? Are they in being admired? Because all of those things can disappear. But if your roots are in inner truth, then even when life becomes chaotic, you remain centered. That does not mean life becomes easy. It means you become stronger than your circumstances. People often imagine that confidence comes from constant success, but Jungian wisdom suggests something deeper. Confidence comes from self-knowledge. It comes from knowing your own mind, your own wound, your own shadow, your own values, your own limits, your own purpose. A person who knows themselves is harder to manipulate, harder to shame, harder to seduce into confusion, harder to break. That is the power of inward clarity. And clarity is rare because people are afraid of what it reveals. Many people prefer confusion because confusion gives them an excuse to stay unchanged. They say, I'm just trying to figure things out. But what they really mean is, I am afraid of what I already know. They already know what they need to stop. They already know what they need to begin. They already know what is hurting them. They already know where they are betraying themselves. But knowing is not enough. Knowing without action becomes self-torture. So let this message be urgent. Do not waste your awareness. If you know your habits are destroying your future, stop defending them. If you know your relationships are draining your soul, stop romanticizing them. If you know your thoughts are toxic, stop calling them truth. If you know your life is out of alignment, stop waiting for permission to change. You do not need the perfect mood to begin. You do not need perfect confidence to move. You do not need perfect clarity to take one honest step. You need willingness. Willingness to face yourself. Willingness to tell the truth. Willingness to endure discomfort for the sake of growth. Willingness to be misunderstood while becoming more real. Willingness to disappoint the version of you that was built on fear. Because the old self will resist the new self. The old self says, stay where it is familiar. The old self says, do not risk rejection. The old self says, do not change too much. The old self says, do not become visible. The old self says, do not ask for more. The old self says, do not become who you really are, because then everything will have to change. And yes, everything may have to change. Your habits may have to change. Your friendships may have to change. Your standards may have to change. Your boundaries may have to change. Your identity may have to change. Your self-image may have to change. Your relationship with fear may have to change. But what is the alternative? To remain trapped in a life that looks safe and feels dead? To repeat the same pain for another decade? To wake up years later and realize you traded your destiny for comfort? To spend your life explaining why you never became yourself? No, not today. Not anymore. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a part of you that has been waiting for a signal, not a loud signal, not a dramatic miracle, just one clear choice, one honest decision, one moment of courage, one refusal to keep living divided against yourself. Because division is suffering. When your inner life and outer life are split, you feel it. When your values and your behavior are split, you feel it. When your dreams and your daily actions are split, you feel it. When your public face and private truth are split, you feel it. When your conscience and your convenience are split, you feel it. And that feeling does not leave until you answer it. So let me speak plainly. Stop hiding from your pain and call it strength. Stop hiding from your fears and calling it personality. Stop hiding from your wounds and calling it destiny. Stop hiding from your anger and calling it peace. Stop hiding from your emptiness and calling it success. Start telling the truth. I am hurt. I am afraid. I am angry. I am lonely. I am confused. I am tired of pretending. I am ready to change. I am ready to face what I have avoided. I am ready to become whole. Those words have power because truth has power. And once you stop fighting yourself, energy returns. The energy that was being used to maintain masks becomes available for creation. The energy that was being used to suppress feelings becomes available for vision. The energy that was being used to resist reality becomes available for movement. The energy that was being used to manage appearances becomes available for life. That is why honesty feels like relief. Not because it solves everything instantly, but because it ends the war. And many people are in a war with themselves every day. They wake up criticizing their bodies. They think thoughts that shame their past. They compare their journey to someone else's highlight reel. They relive old mistakes as if punishment will heal them. They rehearse futures that terrify them. They abandon themselves the moment discomfort appears. Then they wonder why they feel so drained. But the soul cannot flourish in self-attack. You do not heal by hating yourself into change. You heal by seeing yourself clearly enough to take responsible action. You heal by replacing contempt with commitment. You heal by replacing fantasy with discipline. You heal by replacing passive wishing with active becoming. And becoming is a process. The seed does not become the tree overnight. The wound does not become wisdom overnight. The boy does not become the man overnight. The frightened person does not become the centered person overnight. But every honest choice matters. Every time you choose truth over denial, you grow. Every time you choose discipline over impulse, you grow. Every time you choose reflection over reaction, you grow. Every time you choose depth over distraction, you grow. Every time you choose the long path over the easy one, you grow. And growth is not always comfortable, but it is always meaningful. Do not fear the discomfort that comes from transformation. Fear the comfort that comes from stagnation. Many people want change without surrender. They want wisdom without pain. They want peace without confrontation. They want confidence without responsibility. They want a new life while preserving an old identity. But real change requires death of the old pattern. A part of you must end so another part can live. The false self must weaken so the real self can emerge. The borrowed voice must quiet so your own voice can speak. The fearful pattern must be interrupted so a new pattern can form. The unconscious script must be exposed so a new chapter can be written. And yes, this can feel like loss. It can feel like losing people. It can feel like losing certainty. It can feel like losing the story you told about yourself. It can feel like losing the comfort of being small. It can feel like losing the familiar prison. But a prison is still a prison, even when it is decorated beautifully. Freedom may begin in discomfort, but it ends in life. And life, real life, is worth it. So here is the urgent message from the depths of your own personhood. Stop living as a reaction to your wound. Stop letting your pain choose your future. Stop letting your childhood decide your ceiling. Stop letting your last failure define your identity. Stop letting your fear of judgment become the architect of your entire existence. You are more than what happened to you. You are more than what they said about you. You are more than the role you played to survive. You are more than the mistake you regret. You are more than the mask you perfected. You are more than the story you have repeated. There is still more in you. more courage, more depth, more clarity, more compassion, more intelligence, more discipline, more creativity, more resilience, more soul. But it will not fully emerge while you remain fragmented. You must gather yourself, gather your attention, gather your strength, gather your honesty, gather your values, gather your courage, gather your life. Because scattered people cannot build powerful lives. A scattered mind is easily exhausted. A scattered heart is easily manipulated. A scattered identity is easily broken, but a gathered self becomes formidable. And what gathers the self? Truth does, purpose does, reflection does, discipline does, silence does, responsibility does, a willingness to look inward does. This is why solitude can be so powerful. Not loneliness, but solitude. The kind where you finally hear your own thoughts without the crowd drowning them out. The kind where you stop performing long enough to ask real questions. The kind where you sit with yourself and discover that beneath the fear, beneath the noise, beneath the defense, there is still a human being wanting to live honestly. Do not run from that meeting. When you sit alone with your thoughts, you may discover pain, but you may also discover wisdom. You may discover grief, but you may also discover purpose. You may discover what has been broken, but you may also discover what has remained untouched by all the damage. And that untouched part matters. That is where renewal begins. That is where your deeper self speaks. That is where meaning is born. That is where a new path appears. That is where you stop living by accident and begin living by intention. Carl Jung would remind us in his own way that the way forward is not found by escaping the inner world, but by entering it with courage. The answer is not to become less human. The answer is to become more conscious, more aware, more integrated, more whole. And the more whole you become, the less you need to chase what cannot satisfy you. You stop chasing validation because you are anchored. You stop chasing attention because you are clear. You stop chasing shortcuts because you are committed. You stop chasing illusions because you have met reality. You stop chasing empty victories because you understand the value of inner peace. And peace is not passive. Peace is the result of alignment. Peace is the result of honesty. Peace is the result of boundaries. Peace is the result of refusing to betray your inner life for outer approval. So today, make a decision. Decide that you will no longer abandon yourself. Decide that you will no longer avoid the truth. Decide that you will no longer shrink to make others comfortable. Decide that you will no longer worship the mask. Decide that you will no longer ignore the whispers of your soul. Decide that you will no longer postpone your becoming. Because your life is happening now. Not in some distant future when everything is easier. Not when every fear is gone. Not when every wound is healed. Not when everybody agrees. Now. Now is the moment to begin. Now is the moment to remember who you are. Now is the moment to stop lying to yourself. Now is the moment to face the shadow. Now is the moment to seek wholeness. Now is the moment to step out of the old story and into a more truthful one. And let me say this with all the force of conviction. When you begin to live from truth, the right things start to fall into place. Not always quickly, not always smoothly, but faithfully. Your decisions become cleaner. Your relationships become clearer. Your energy becomes stronger. Your boundaries become wiser. Your purpose becomes louder. Your life begins to feel like yours again. That is the miracle. Not that life becomes perfect, but that you become present. Not that pain disappears, but that pain no longer owns you. Not that fear is never felt, but that fear no longer rules the room. Not that the shadows vanish, but that you can walk through them without losing yourself. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is freedom. So do not leave this moment the same person who entered it. Let something shift. Let something wake up. Let something old fall away. Let something honest stand up inside you and say, enough. I am ready to live differently. Because the urgent message from your person is not outside you. It is inside you. It has been waiting. Waiting for your attention. Waiting for your honesty. Waiting for your courage. Waiting for your response. And now you have heard it. Now the question is not whether the message is clear. The question is whether you will answer. Answer with truth. Answer with discipline. Answer with courage. Answer with action. Answer with a life that finally reflects the depth of your soul. And when you do, you will discover something extraordinary. You were never truly lost. You were becoming.